So that is ultimately how we can build a generalized motor pattern. Then what we have to do is we have to take this generalized motor pattern and begin to adapt it. Just showed you a couple of slides ago the golfers all hitting different shots, different environmental demands. So as our player is training to learn and they're going around these practice circuits and changes are starting to happen to the movement patterns, then we have to add a bit more context. We have to look at how can this individual begin to train to perform. So what we want to do in training to perform, we want to put these new movement patterns, these generalized motor patterns, under a little bit more stress. So what do? We play games. And these games are outside with varying lies, varying challenges, and also we start to implement a little bit of the psychological side of golf. When you're playing for a target score, there's going to be stress, there's going to be adversity, there's going to be failure. So we are adding context, we are adding environmental context, and we are adding psychological context. And I'm guilty of saying this. If you listen to our podcast on gltgolf.com, if you read the blogs that I publish on gltgolf.com, or any of our free downloads that are available to you guys, you'll hear me say, or you'll read a lot, there's two characteristics that tour players share. And it's not wrist angles. Wrist angle, Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson is completely different. Kinematic sequences are similar, but people are still outside of the norm a lot. Plane of golf swing is completely different. Club face at the top is completely different. Floor pressure is different. So we often look for similarities in the mechanics of the golf swing, and I don't really believe they're there. I believe we're looking in the wrong area. The best players in the world do two things better than anyone else. They adapt to the environment and they deal with adversity. That's what they do. If you look at Ricky Fowler when he first got on tour, theoretically, his golf swing versus some of those web.com players, it wasn't as good to the golf swing purists. To me, it made no difference, but to the golf swing purists, it wasn't as good. But yet he could still perform to a higher level. And I believe that's because he had an ability to adapt to the environment far exceeding the web.com players, and he had an ability to deal with adversity on a much higher level than the players on the web.com, perhaps with better mechanics that weren't performing to him. So for me, the two characteristics that are present in all elite performers on the PGA Tour, it's not golf swing characteristics, it's the ability to adapt and the ability to deal with adversity. And that's what we're starting to introduce to training now. We've gone through the training to learn, where you're building a generalized motor pattern. Now, can you maintain that motor pattern while you're playing performance games? And there's a slight difference. Be careful with performance games. If you're looking at retention and transfer of skill, you can play a game and just become good at that game. If it's just a putting game, where you may play 9 holes on the putting green, or it might be par 18, where you just chip and putt and have to get the ball up and down, think about it. Is spacing and variability and challenge, is it high or low? Hands up if you think spacing, variability and challenge is high when you're playing a performance game like par 18 around the green. And hands up if you think it's low. Well, everyone's right, there's no correct answer. It just depends where you set the bar. If you get a player that just is raking and hitting, or just gonna hit 50 chips from the same area, then go hold 53-foot putts in a row like that, if you get them into a game where they have to chip, putt, change location, chip, putt, change location, then spacing, variability and challenge is higher. But if you're talking about someone that wants to win their club championship, lower their handicap by 5 or 6 shots, compete on tour, retention and transfer from just playing a solo game is quite low. So what we do at Game Like Training is we interleave games. And this is a great example of how to take performance games and make them even more representative of golf. Induce more space, induce more variability, thus inducing more learning. So we have a good college player that we work with here. One of the things we noticed from watching him play, he really struggles to couple ball flight and landing zone. So we want to give him the opportunity to hit more shots and work on his landing zone. But we don't just want to do it on the plastic environment of the range. We took him onto his practice facility and we got him moving around. We did 3 different games. We did a landing zone challenge, which was 9 shots, which you can see he's about to hit here. We then did a shot shaping challenge. This kid's a very, very good iron player. So we sandwiched a game that was his strength into the middle of this. And then we did a proximity challenge. So he's got 3 games. Landing zone challenge, 9 shots, point for each. Shot shaping challenge, 9 shots, point for each. And a proximity challenge, pitching and chipping around the green, 9 shots, point for each. So there's 27 points available. His target score is 17. If he didn't reach 17, then he's not allowed to go on TrackMan and work on what he wants to work on. So that alone dialed him in. That consequence was massive for him. So let's see how he gets on. So this is the first shot of the first game. So there he's trying to land it in those bands, so he got a point there. Then he's moved around the facility, and now he has to hit one of the 9 shots. So we can see that ball's in a divot as well. And he might be trying to hit low draw or high fade, I'm unsure, but he's got it one of the 9 shots that there are in golf, and he gets a point if he successfully executes it. The reason that ball's in a divot is because this student struggles to deal with adversity. If you see when he moves, so now he's moved to the 3rd, the proximity pitching chipping challenge, and we've given him a real tough stance and lie. Again, because he struggles to deal with adversity on the golf course. So we're giving him some adversity to face in training. And he actually does extremely well in this game. So we can see there's the landing zone one, back to the shot shaping one, back to the proximity one. And then back to the landing zone, back to shot shaping, and then back to proximity challenge. So this is his final shot. He actually got way more than his target score. He did extremely well. So we can see the mechanical stuff that he's been working on and his ability to couple flight and landing zone. It's starting to come through, not only on the range, it's come through when there was an outcome on the line, and it's come through when he's had to adapt to the environment of the golf course. So him walking around and him having 3 games where he does a shot from game 1, a shot from game 2, a shot from game 3, back round to game 1, it adds spacing, variability and challenge. So ultimately we can see his generalized motor pattern can adapt to the environment. So what do we do from there? Well, what about if we didn't see his ability to adapt? What about if he failed in that task? What about if he needed some mechanical work? Then great. This isn't a linear process, and that's very important. This isn't about training to learn, training to perform, golf course challenges. This is about where's your student on this pathway, and you may have to go back at the right time, you may have to go forward at the right time. So we don't have to just separate technique and performance. There is the opportunity in a lesson to do both. And a game like training, this is how we would do it. And I'm going to preface this with a quote. If you've not managed to read any of Percy Boomer's stuff, he was a Hall of Fame coach from 1920s to 30s. Phenomenal, some of the stuff. He was far, far ahead of his time. And he said, I had in fact reached the conclusion that any separation of the mental and physical functions in the playing or teaching of golf must be artificial. Because in the practical job of playing or teaching, no such separation is possible. And he's correct. If you want to perform at the highest level, everything has to synergize. Your mechanics, your mind, your performance, your strategy, your physical body, everything has to synergize if you want to perform at the highest level. So if you want to perform at the highest level and create this synergy, does it not make sense in practice to have some sort of synergy between technical performance and mental? And when I first started coaching, I did separate it. We would work on mechanics for 10, 15 minutes, and I'd be with a coach. There was many coaches that I've partnered with, and they would work on mechanics, and I would be there, and okay, now let's do a combine and see if that change helps. It doesn't work like that. I've heard coaches say they're in a technical week, and then next week is going to be performance week. And what, you're just going to turn that performance light on and forget all the mechanical stuff? So we've got to give students the opportunity to learn all of this at the same time and give them the ability to join the dots and synergize. Because ultimately that's what elite performance is. So you can see on this slide, we talked in the previous section about interleaving of performance games. One shot from game one, one shot from game two, one shot from game three, back to game one. Well, we can interleave a game with technical drills. So, you can see here, and this is an extract from our book, Station 1, Drill 1, Control the Arc Drill. So you would do 5 repetitions there. Then you're going to walk to the chipping green. You're going to hit your chip and putt in par 18. Then you're going to go to Station 3 and do lead leg only drill, 5 reps. Then you're going to go back to Station 1, control the arc drill. Then you're going to go and play your performance game. So when we coach at Game Like Training, often we interleave technical drills and technical stations with performance games. And if that student is closer to a tournament, it might be 2 performance games, 1 technical drill. If that student's further away from a tournament, it might be 2 technical drills, 1 performance game. But completely dependent on the student. And I actually have students now that love this. So whenever they're working on technique, as they like to say, they'll always have a performance game running alongside with an outcome. And this is great because it adds spacing, variability, and challenge to practice. So again, when we go outside and we do the practical stuff with Matthew, you guys will see not only a training to learn circuit, you'll see the next circuit along where we put some training to learn drills and interleave games with that. And for those of you watching online, we'll do some bonus footage of this and a copy of our book, Golf Practice, How to Take Your Range Game to the Course, covers this in great detail. So, I'm going to try and do a quick recap. There's a myth in golf that repetition is required to change your golf swing. That's absolutely not the case. Repetition and muscle memory do not exist. What we have to do is we have to build a training environment that is conducive to learning. The way that we do this, we add spacing, variability, and challenge. So if someone's training to learn, we want them doing multiple drills, but always changing task, changing drill, because that induces deeper learning, creates cognitive stress because of the spacing, variability, and challenge. You can then add performance games, and performance games are great because then the generalized motor pattern that you're trying to build up starts to get adapted to the environmental and psychological demands of golf, but the jump's not too big. So you can interleave some training to learn, technical drills with performance games, or like in the video I showed you, you can interleave just performance games. Once you've got to that point where you're interleaving performance games, and you can be sneaky as a golf coach. When you're interleaving performance games, if you've got a body track, maybe 2 of the iron shots are hit from the body track. You can film while they're in the performance circuit. You can film while they're hitting shots. So you're now capturing data, 2D data on video, ground pressure data. You could have a K-motion on the student the whole time as they're going through these interleaved circuits, capturing data. You could put the cap toe on a student's putter, so you could have a putting performance challenge, you could have a full swing performance challenge, and a pitching performance challenge. And I've seen Eric do this. At the putting performance challenge, the cap toe is there. At the full swing performance station, the K-motion is turned on and turned off so Eric can get kinematic sequence data. And then at the pitching station, they might be hitting their pitches from the body track mat, or they maybe hit half of them. If there's 10 shots in the challenge, maybe 5 are hit from off the body track. But what Eric's doing, which is super smart, is he's capturing data in context. Because our students are clever. When they come to a lesson and just walk in, and you say to them, okay, let's put a few on camera and TrackMan, and it's just from a range bay, there's no outcome, there's no need to adapt, there's no shot shaping, there's no spacing, there's no variability, the challenge is very low, and they're probably just going to manipulate the golf club so it looks good on the camera. Whereas in interleaving of performance games, there is stress, there is adaptation, they're worried about the score, they want to achieve a certain amount of points. So actually the data that you're capturing is pure, because it's coming from a more contextualized place. So there's a quick review, and I got a little bit off track there, sorry. So that's just, I guess, kind of an add-on, something for you guys that use technology and video to think about. But once the student's gone through this, what do? We want to get them on the golf course, and we want to place them under more stress, because we want to see if these generalized motor patterns can not only hold up on the golf course, we want to see if they can hold up on the golf course that is more demanding than tournament play. So before I go into that, I'm going to play you guys a video.
On-course training, the sharpshooter. This game is designed to help you deal with outcome stress when using the driver and sharpen your scoring wedges. What you'll do is you'll hit your tee ball as normal, and then when you arrive at your tee ball, you'll pick it up and move it to between 50 and 90 yards away from the flag. If you're intermediate level and you hit the fairway or in the semi-rough by 1 club, you win a bonus ball. Advanced level, if you hit the fairway, you win a bonus ball. And for tour level players, you must hit the correct half of the fairway to earn your bonus ball. Hit your approach shots. If you earned a bonus ball, play both approach shots. Select your best ball and play out as normal. Intermediate golfers try and beat 5 over for 9 holes. Advanced try and shoot even par. Tour level, 5 under or better.
So I'm fortunate enough to work with tour players, and I've worked with some good college players, and it's been said a lot, you can never recreate the pressure that a player is going to face when they're going down the stretch. It's impossible in practice to simulate what they're going to face. And that's probably correct. To get it exactly right, I completely agree with them. And then I say we can make it harder. We can make games and challenges harder than competitive golf. We can make them so hard that we can drive you to stress levels that you may not face in tournament golf. And I've seen it done. So this game, I had a student that was struggling with their driver, and on the range, perfect. Put him in a performance game after we looked at some on the range, perfect. Came out and played, fine. Hit it great. And we started talking, look, your golf swing's obviously good, you picked the right strategy, you're hitting the ball great, it stood up on the range, it stood up in a performance game, and it stood up for this first 3 holes of this encore session. I said, let's build a challenge. Let's build a challenge that puts more stress on the driver. I said, what other area of the game do you want to work on? What do your stats say? And he says, I'm not really pitching it closer. I'm not giving myself enough looks from inside 15 to 10 feet when I'm pitching. So we designed that game specifically for that. Because he got a bonus ball if he drove it into the fairway, and he got 2 chances at then making birdie from his desired area of where he wanted to improve, there was a bit more pressure on the tee shot because there was a reward. And he started to miss fairways because he started thinking about the reward of the second ball rather than thinking about his processes. So the psychological part, the context of an outcome started to impact his mind, which impacted his body, which impacted how the club went around the body, which impacted the ball flight. So the psychology of this game started to impede his generalized motor patterns. He started to play too aggressively, he started to pick poor lines off the tee. So it was very interesting by loading him with stress of, okay, you get a bonus ball and then you get to shoot from these areas, but you got to make 5 birdies in 9 holes. He became completely outcome focused and everything fell to pieces. So the ability for him to deal with adversity and adapt to the demands of competition was not there. But we continued to play this game for a few weeks, and lo and behold, you get good at what you practice. His proximities from wedges improved, and he was calming himself down more in competition because of the experience he was having in practice. So, we have therefore designed a constraints-led task specifically for this player, and he helped us build it. When the student is involved in the building of the task, they really grasp the understanding and are very passionate about the game. And he did it with me, and then he went away, and it improved. And it improved by him playing this game. He got away from golf swing, and he understood that his swing was good enough. He just needed to learn to adapt it to the environment and the pressure of playing for an outcome. Now, most golfers, when they practice, there's only outcomes on the line when they're actually playing on the golf course in competition. Therefore, practice is not hard enough, it's not challenging enough, it's not driving psychological characteristics of excellence. It's creating an environment that builds false confidence, and then they go and fail in tournaments. And this cycle just keeps repeating. So, for those of you watching as part of our online certification, Eric Zeigel is going to talk more about constraints-led learning and teaching games for understanding and task design. And for those of you that are here right now for the certification, we will go outside and you'll see some practical, you'll see them, and some of you that want to will get to experience them when we go outside for the practical session next.
On-course training, the sharp.
So, What we have now, we have training, game-like training, that is helping not only the adaptation of the generalized motor pattern, but it's also putting this generalized motor pattern in maximal contextual interference. You cannot create any more contextual interference than we did for this player with this game. Both environmental and psychological. So, just before we take a short break, here's a synopsis of what we've talked about. And this, I said it earlier, this is very simple. It's not as linear as this, but this is ultimately what's in our book. And we call this the learning performance continuum. So, a student that is training to learn is going to be very cognitive. There is a place for block practice, small place. Maybe for professional and tour level players, I don't even know if there is a place for block practice. They're so good that I believe block practice is just about really getting some conceptual awareness. A tour player is going to pick that up straight away. So I would really believe that block practice is beneficial for a beginner. But as soon as you're showing any type of skill towards golf or towards the area you're trying to learn, you've got to move towards interleaved. And that can be interleaving of training tasks for technique or to learn. And it can also be interleaving of performance games and technique. And you can see on this diagram we've put like a transition phase. That's the area where, okay, am I training to learn? Am I training to perform? I'm not quite sure. So let's see, we'll interleave some technical stuff and some performance games. And based on that data, do we go back into the learning circle or do we go forward into the performance circle? But once you're in that performance circle, it's all about games. Teaching games for understanding, teaching games to help players develop psychological habits of excellence, games that are going to help them adapt what they're learning into the performance arena, adapt to the environment, and adapt to the psychological pressures of playing. Learn to inoculate that stress response. So, ultimately, kind of a strange slide to close this section out. You can't learn to swim in the bathtub. Yes, you could get a great technique, but if you try to learn to swim in the bathtub, you may look good on camera. As soon as you dive in that pool to take on Michael Phelps, it's going to be game over. So the bathtub, kind of the equivalent of the golf range. You can't learn to play golf on the golf range. Find a way to create organized mess or systematic chaos. Do that, and you will achieve the art of repetition without repetition. So we're not getting our reps in, we're getting our reps in without repetition. And finally, practice to look good in practice or practice to perform in competition. And both of those quotes are from one of Matthew's mentors, who is unfortunately no longer with us, Dr. Richard Smith, expert in motor learning. So let's take a quick break and then practical sessions outside, and then we'll come back in this afternoon, look a little bit more at sports psychology. Thank you.
Special thanks to Capto for sponsoring the event. Their putting analysis software is incredible. If you haven't used it or if you haven't seen it, we suggest you check them out. It's lightweight, portable, easy to use. Best part is you can capture in context, just like we talked about within this certification. Make sure you go to www.gltgolfstore.com to check out Capto and purchase yours today.